Thanks so much for tuning in to Raiders Report. My name is Mitchell Renz. Please follow me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365. And why don't you guys like Oakland Raiders by Chat Sports on Facebook so you know exactly when I go live. I talked about some news. I talked about some rumors. Now I'm going to get into the second segment of my show, which is the top 5 free agents Oakland could still sign this offseason. Oakland's been busy this entire offseason, and, well, I think I got 5 names that are definitely going to pique your interest, that's for sure. So let's get into that first guy on the list. It's Eric Reid. Reid is 26 years old and coming off a season where he played 13 games for the 49ers. The market this offseason for safeties has been kind of strange, but from a talent standpoint, there's no reason why this guy shouldn't be signed. The reason he makes the list is because he could perhaps play linebacker/safety hybrid position for the Raiders. Gunther is a safety whisperer, and the Raiders are still without NaVorro Bowman and Khalil Mack. He would add a ton of versatility to this defense. So now I'm going to bring up some safeties that they have. Carl Joseph, I love. Obi, a lot of upside. Reggie Nelson, a little bit older, but just imagine if we could add a guy like Eric Reid. He could play like that linebacker safety hybrid, add a lot of defensive, versatility, which I know a guy like John Gruden would definitely love. Next guy coming up on the list, he's a cornerback, Bashaud Breeland. Now, are we 100% sure that Leon Hall is going to be able to play all 16 games this season and be a reliable option for the Raiders? He missed 7 games last season and hasn't played a full 16-game season since 2010. The top song in 2010 was TikTok by Kesha. Well, TikTok on the clock for Leon Hall and for Father Time. Over 4 seasons in D.C., Breeland recorded 270 combined tackles, 60 passes defensed, 8 interceptions, and 7 forced fumbles. Now, let's bring up those Raiderback corners. Garyon Conley, a guy who we talked about earlier. Absolute breakout. Rashawn Melvin, he's coming in over from the Colts. Love him. He's a stud. Leon Hall, though, again, I don't know if I can rely on him. I understand he played really well with the Bengals and with Gunther, but this guy's kind of old. He's over 30 years old. Darryl Worley I like a lot, but still a young guy, 25 years old. And then Nick Nelson has a lot of upside out of Wisconsin, but still a little bit of a question mark. No doubt about that. Raider Nation, today's show is brought to you by Mizzen+Main. And, well, Mizzen+Main, thank you so much for hooking me up with this sweet shirt. I woke up, rolled out of bed this morning, and I put this baby on, and it was like I never even left my bed. Unbelievably comfortable. I almost wore it to the gym, in fact. Head over to Mizzen+Main, www.comfortable.af, and get yourself one. You're definitely going to love it. All right, next guy I got coming up for you guys up on the board is a wide receiver, and his name is Jeremy Maclin. This edition is solely based on the concern and question marks surrounding Martavis Bryant. There was a report that Bryant may be suspended, and if this happens, they may target a player who was already rumored to joining the team this offseason. Maclin is 30 years old and coming off 2 straight years of playing just 12 games. Maclin would be able to fit into the West Coast offense, I think, fairly nicely. Now, let's bring up the Oakland Raiders wide receiver depth chart. Now, I like Amari. I like Jordy Nelson, what he can add to the team from we'll say a locker room perspective. Martavis, that's the question mark. And if we could get a guy like Maclin to fit right into that 3rd spot, that's a pretty solid receiver, and he could fit in, I think, pretty quickly with the West Coast offense. Next guy I got coming up on the board, well, a big-name wide receiver, and that guy's name is Dez Bryant. Bryant is also on here because of the uncertainty surrounding Martavis Bryant. If there are no issues with Martavis, and the Raiders will not target a guy like Dez or Maclin because their wide receiver depth chart, I think, is already steady. So, again, let's bring up that depth chart real quick. That way I can show you again. Awesome. Ryan Switzer, he's a guy who I think could just add a little bit into the slot. Seth Roberts, I've already talked about. I think the Raiders, from a talent standpoint, should cut him, but it's not going to save them a lot of money. But if you had a guy like Dez, the Raiders struggled a lot in the red zone last year, and, well, sure, he didn't really get along with a guy like Dak Prescott, but I think Dez can still add some sort of an element to that offense and really stretch out the field. And if they're going to pound the rock with a guy like Marshawn, I think, again, it's just going to add more elements to the red zone, which the Raiders definitely needed, and it's going to help out a guy like Derek Carr for sure. And, well, he's also kind of old, and that just seems to be the Raiders' theme this offseason. Last guy coming up on the board, and I don't think it's that big a surprise, it's NaVorro Bowman. The Raiders caught a break in 2017 when NaVorro Bowman was released by the 49ers. Oakland signed the 3-time Pro Bowler who would end up leading the team in tackles with 89 in just 10 games. Last season, Bowman gave the Raiders a true presence at the linebacker position that they haven't seen since Kirk Morrison roamed the field. It is for this reason he is the Raiders' top priority free agent this offseason. Now, Raider Nation, let's check out some of those linebackers that they have from the middle linebacker position. Bowman is just a solid guy in the middle, and I understand we signed Whitehead, and I understand Derek Johnson. But Akeem Victor from Washington, he's a guy who had a lot of upside, but kind of struggled this past season. And then Kabita from Penn State, I like him a lot, 3-time captain. Markel Lee, I'm not really sold on him. But if we can add a guy like Bowman, cover in the middle of that defense, I mean, what more do you want? The guy was an absolute monster last year. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's circle through all of my top 5 free agents that the Raiders could still sign. We got Eric Reid at safety. Maybe he could also play like safety/linebacker. I wouldn't mind seeing that on the field. We got Breeland at cornerback, solid guy. Jeremy Maclin at wide receiver, and Dez Bryant at wide receiver. Remember, they're on here just in case because what's going on with Martavis? We heard some things, and if that goes down the drain, well, then we can maybe rely on a guy like Maclin, Bryant, 2 veterans, and, well, that just seems to be the theme of the offseason for the Raiders. And last, and certainly not least, linebacker NaVorro Bowman, if we could get him back on that defense, and an absolute staple at the middle linebacker position. Raider Nation, thank you so much for tuning in to the Raiders Report. My name is Mitchell Renz. Please follow me on Twitter at MitchellRenz365. And until next time, go Raiders.